Chapter 8, Optimization. So in the last chapter, I talked you through kind of what metrics matter. Again, just very, very simple. Just to reference that to know that that's what we're going to look at, dividing ad metrics versus funnel metrics. I'll even talk about webinar metrics in just a minute specific to webinar and how we optimize our campaigns. And really in this chapter, I'm going to go through a really important decision tree and how we optimize our ads. And then we'll be in the home stretch, and then I'll take you through kind of the advanced targeting in chapter 9, and then finally in chapter 10, I'll talk about just ultimately just scaling up, which is what we're always on a mission to do, right? We want to spend as much as possible, right? I love when Todd says it. He says, we'll spend as much as we can spend, right? If it's profitable, like there is no limit to what we would spend because we understand that that's what grows the business. So let's hop into optimization here. And so as I mentioned in the last chapter, again, I just want to introduce that very briefly. I explained the difference between there's ad metrics and there's funnel metrics. And again, some of them are, it's not a totally clean line, like return on investment. Obviously, if I'm advertising to a really non-targeted audience of newbies who are broke, right, that's not going to be a great ROI, right? If I'm advertising to experienced entrepreneurs, and business owners who we have tremendous results and tremendous success with. It's going to be different. But overall, I'm typically going to look at, ROI from a funnel perspective because it's easier to move the needle with the funnel and be able to say, hey, I need a second upsell, I need a payment plan, I need to increase conversion. And then from a webinar perspective, there are webinar funnel specific metrics that I'll look at, not just the opt-in rate, obviously, which is the same, but then I'll look at show rate, take rate, and replay conversion rate. So take rate being sales conversion rate. But the two things that are different is I'll look at show rate and replay conversion rate. And those are two metrics that if I notice that my show rate is really low being, we typically see on an evergreen a show rate between about 30 and 50 is healthy, 30 to 50%. If I'm below 30, that's something I'm going to focus on optimizing. Just so you know, just as some guidelines or buoys. Typically an opt-in rate on cold traffic, just straight up email. We'll look for an opt-in rate between about 25 to about 50%. Maybe 45, about 25 to 45%. 50 might be a little high. 25 to 45%. Show rate on a webinar again, about 30 to 50%. And a take rate, it all depends on the price of the offer. So let's talk about optimization, and I'm going to talk about the ad conversion diagnosis trait. And so, again, because I like for our campaigns we're running right now, and most of them, I like CPL as a goal because it's something very controllable, manageable. It's a target's very close to know if we're hitting it or not hitting it. And so let's say we see our CPL is high. Well, the first thing that I look at is what's my cost per click, and is my cost per click good or bad? And again, I know this is going to sound, if you've heard Todd teach about some things, he'll say, well, cost isn't good or bad, and it's only based on ROI. There is no good or bad cost. But for us, because our goal is to be in a certain range for CPL, because I know that I can afford to spend a certain amount on leads, I do care about the cost per click. So if I look at my campaigns, and there's a couple ways to do this, good or bad. Good can be, well, if I can afford to spend, say, $12 a lead, and my opt-in page is $3, is converting at 25%, well, then I could afford to spend $3 a click. Now remember, that's got to be a real click. That can't just be a Facebook link click that says we got it, but we didn't really get it. So it's usually overstated. So realistic, I could probably afford to spend under $2, $2 or $2.50 a click to get in there. So if I see that my click cost per click is really good and my CPL is still really high, meaning my cost per click is low and my CPL is high, well, then I know that I need to work on my opt-in rate. Right? Maybe my ad is incongruent. Maybe my opt-in page, I need to test some variations. So that's the decision I would make. If my CPL is high and my CPC, my cost per click, is really low, well, then I'll ask myself, how's the relevance? If the relevance is good, what I'll do is I'll then look through my click-through rate. If the relevance is good, I'll look through my click-through rate. And if the click-through rate is good, I'll look at frequency. So basically, when an ad gets served too many times to the same people, frequency rises above about 1.3 to 1.5. Okay, this is on the performance and clicks drop down, which whenever you view your ad stats, just click on performance and clicks, and we can see our stats there. If the frequency is getting high, I'm realizing I'm saturating the audience, which means I need to expand to a new audience or just expand the reach. And that's why, even though the relevance is good and the click-through rate is good, my cost is high because of frequency. If the relevance is good but the click-through rate is low, well, then I'm going to improve the call to action. Maybe I need, maybe I forgot to add a call to action button. Maybe I need to add a link directly in the post. Maybe we need to make it clearer, like, hey, grab your spot on this free webinar. Download this thing now by doing this. Like, make it super duper clear so that the click-through rate goes up. Okay. Now, let's start back to the beginning of the tree. If my cost per lead is high, my cost per click is not good, meaning it's also high, and my relevance is low, well, then I'm going to look to warm up the ad better. Either warm it up better, or maybe I have negative feedback because I said something that kind of rubbed people the wrong way. But I'll start the ad over and look to go through that, relevance warm-up solution I mentioned, and make sure I get a lot of good traction on that ad before it starts to run. And that's it. And that's really how, it really is that, this part of it really is that simple. As I look at this decision tree, I walk through, and this is how I analyze and get ads, out of the winner's circle into the winner's circle. And I'll be honest, most ads do not start in the winner's circle. They just don't. And they take a little bit of tweaking. And so again, remember, the ad game is simplified because the audience is constant and the funnel is proven. Again, if we weren't sure about the audience and we were changing audiences all the time right now, we were changing the funnel all the time right now, it would be very hard to know what's working and what's not. But because we know the funnel works, right, we're testing a proven funnel, and because we know that the audience is an audience that works, and we're not changing that all the time, we can focus on getting the ads to work. Okay. Again, I'll talk about later when we would try new audiences and how to do that. And I'll also talk about, listen, sometimes we are going to launch funnels that are brand new that just go to cold traffic, and that's okay too. It takes a little bit more time. But again, then what we'll do is we'll do the same thing. It'll take a little bit more time, but we'll go to a proven audience. We'll follow this decision tree. And then if we see, hey, our relevance is great, our click-through rate is great, our cost per click is great, it's all great, and the campaign's just not converting, well, then we know that maybe that campaign just doesn't work for cold traffic, and we have to revisit and redo that, which is, very normal. Again, it's very rare to hit a home run on the first swing. This is a process, and we understand that. And so let me show you the core funnel metrics. I talked about that before. One of the core funnel metrics, I always focus on opt-in rate, right, since I'm driving CPL. And so before, we were running a page like this. This is the page I showed you that we came out with. Very, very congruent. It's getting about a 22 to 25% opt-in rate. Came out with this page, and this is getting about a 28 to 34% opt-in rate. So increased our opt-in about 30 plus percent, 30 to 40%. And the reason this works, I've used this format a number of times. There's a couple key elements to this page. One, it's super duper clear and simple. Two, it's great on mobile. So on mobile, it's just displays with a headline and a button that says next. Really, really simple. Number three, it has a micro commitment. So how did you hear about us? Whether you use a bucket strategy here or just something simple. How did you hear about us? Facebook. Wow, that's an easy question. I can answer that right away. And as soon as they do that, that micro commitment just greatly increases the likelihood of them then selecting a time for the webinar and opting in. Even that little gold seal has worked well for us. Just a gold seal makes people feel comfortable, confident. Again, I'm not going to put a direct claim or financial claim in there, but just saying it's generating results in the most competitive markets. Doesn't say what kind of results, doesn't say you'll get the results, but it does, state, hey, listen, that's the truth. The truth is, listen, this thing is working like crazy in different markets and different niches around the world, and so it gives them something to hang their hat on. So that's one of the things we did to boost our opt-in rate, and so we want to definitely get the opt-in pages up above that, up in the 30 plus percent opt-in rate, and that'll drop that cost per lead down, which again will ultimately increase our overall return on investment. Talk about boosting webinar show rate again, because we're, our magic bullet, our pillar here is a webinar. One of the key metrics with a webinar that's unique to a webinar is show rate. And so some of the things we've done is adding text reminders, like as soon as they opt in on the thank you page, saying, hey, do you want to get a text reminder, and then sending them text reminder with their information. And then before the webinar starts, sending voice reminders when we do capture their cell phone number works really effective. On the thank you page, we've also used desktop push reminders where it says, would you like to receive a desktop notification when your webinars workshop's about to start, offering bonuses for attending, and even optimizing times with the best show rate. So after we've run some traffic, looking back at the webinar and say, hey, what times are really the most popular and have the best show rates? And then if for some reason, people always pick the 9 a.m., but nobody wakes up and shows to that workshop. Well, then let's not offer it. I don't want to just offer it because people like it. I want to offer it because they show up. Because when they show up, that's when we get a chance to sell and to generate those new customers. So that's how we look at boosting webinar show rate. And then boosting replay revenue, this is another key thing. We started this campaign doing an encore only, and so rather than offering a replay, because we just felt like, well, that devalued being on the evergreen webinar if it was just like, well, you can get a replay. So we said, hey, there is no replay, and the only way to see it again would be to register and go through the process the whole way again, and that just didn't work. It just didn't work, and so instead we decided to go with a timed replay. So it's a countdown specific timer, so when they get the replay link, it's only up for 48 hours. It's hard coded to their account. It creates urgency, so then the email and the page has urgency of, hey, you need to watch this now, don't procrastinate, don't put it off, check out the training now. And either that player will either have no controls, because we don't want people to just skip around or skip to the end of it. They really need to go through the educational based marketing that we have at the beginning of that to understand why our solution's the best, why it works, why we're unique, why we get the results we get for our clients and our students, or experience the success they are. And then, so we'll either do it with no controls, or we'll do it where they can resume where they left off. And that's optimization. That's how we go through, and that's the process I go through. And so that's what I want you to follow.